She's not taking in the accountability of your growth, your learning, and how you are also agreeing that the version of yourself that exists, it connects with people on a more natural state. Yet, it doesn't mean that it will consistently show up even when they pull out of that relationship. For this is not a one-sided state of being. For it to exist and build a healthy consciousness for humankind's brain, not your brain, not her brain, but a humankind's brain, we both need to involve and build something that is healthy for a humankind's brain. But she is seeking control. For when you will walk away, because you already detached emotionally, even though you and I don't exist, eventually she will realize, eventually she will notice. It is when you have broken the system that she was entirely relying on. So when she comes back, she doesn't want to reconnect with you. She hasn't really changed, and she hasn't solved that pattern that creates conflict and division. It's because you breaking the system, you are creating conflict and division to a perception or a system that she has created and she is consistently relying on, when we all know that system breeds what? Enslavement to a humankind's brain. And she is in that and she can't see that. Or she's in that, she knows it, and she thinks that she can do better. Only to realize that thinking that she can do better in that alone is the enslavement, because there will be too much pressure, too much hate that she can no longer take. And this is when you crush her ego without even planning to, without even that being the intention to acting or responding to her walking out of your life. So we are saying we can use logistics and data to build a serious, stable relationship with the other image that we think exists. But we also need to accept that we are not responsible to how they perceive the world, as long as we carry a healthy character and behavior that modifies and creates a healthy consciousness for humankind's brain to experience, and not your brain, not her brain. And I think this is the battle that both of us are in, because most of the time we think that we are doing the best for ourselves, yet we are doing the best for humankind's brain. And when you create something that is healthy to a humankind's brain, you reinforce pressure to her state of being, and you apply pressure to her state of being. That is what she thinks exists, and that perception doesn't exist. And you reinforce a healthy consciousness, you will eventually be part of the movement that reinforces that consciousness to a humankind state of being that is healthy. And you become part of the movement that creates a healthy environment for humankind's state of being, that is a humankind's brain. Even if that is not the intention, but that is what eventually happens, because we have no control over the outside events. Yet we can build a consciousness that is healthy. For all these consciousnesses were discovered million years back, and we have no control over them. But every time we engage in something, someone is watching. When they watch, they get a perception of it. As long as it is a healthy character that doesn't bring conflict or division on a logical state. When I say a healthy character, I mean we are kind to ourselves, to a humankind state of being that is a humankind brain, and to the environment around us. Even when no one is watching, if that makes more sense. For this is the only pathway forward for freedom. See, let's say we build a relationship. We want something better. We ended that relationship with Hannah. She gaslighted, she ghosted, blamed you. And somehow you thought that was a reality. And it eventually crashed. When it crashed, everything crumbled, but you thought you knew yourself, her, and even the reality. And in that is the truth. What you thought you knew crumbled, because what you thought you knew doesn't really exist. It was just the perception of it. And when it crumbled, it gave you freedom. But because feeling the emotions that comes with someone breaking the energy and the perception of what you thought exists is uncomfortable, we distract ourselves, we reach out, we explain, we beg, we chase. For involving in this pattern, we create a perception of safety. And creating a perception of safety in alone, in that involving, that is what we call psychological enslavement. For we are now enslaving ourselves. We are trying to hold on what we think we know, so we distract ourselves and we engage in things that cause more harm to a humankind's brain, because we are reinforcing a perception psychologically and not involving logically and learning that we experienced a specific state of being that had an impact and an influence on us psychologically. In this way, when this consciousness exists, and breaking it instantly, it will have an impact on us on a physical sensation. On a psychological sensation, dopamine chemicals will hit, or maybe serotonin chemicals will hit, eventually, just because we saw her text. Stress hormones will hit. Those are the chemicals, because we are breaking the pattern and the brain is fighting that, because the brain is giving power to thought, and that is when we are creating a state of being that is unhealthy to a humankind's brain, not my brain, not her brain. And this is why we will enslave ourselves, but the brain doesn't know that. By doing something consistently, we are often expecting something in return. And this expectation is where conflict is. But we can't even feel the pressure that comes with it, because we abandoned the nature of oneself long time ago, and there is a huge distance between the him that existed psychologically and the now. And this time and this distance, it is creating conflict and division. And instead of accepting that we have no control over outside events and we did nothing wrong, we distract ourselves with multiple women. We end up posting on our status that with stoic knowledge and wisdom, all to prove to her that we moved on. We are not doing this for fun. We are doing this to prove to her that we are strong and we moved on. And I know we will say, no, that is not the intention, because it is a subconscious reacting to a state of being that is uncomfortable to what we think we hold meaning to, or to what we think is a reality. But in that, we are creating what? Conflict. And now we give them power and control that doesn't really even exist